Hey everybody, it's Dan, and as I'm recording this video, I apologize if I seem antsy and like moving from foot to foot and things like that, but well, we had over the summer, and as you can see, you've probably seen behind me, like we've got some stuff, racked up pretty good. But over the summer, we had a really bad flood coming through one of our window wells in the basement, and got that fixed, but well, all of the carpet and everything like that was just unsalvageable. So we had to remove all of the carpet, remove all of the tiling that was underneath the carpet, and now we've got all of this nice, lovely black, tile gunk that was keeping the tiles on. Still have to kind of smooth it out with this guy here, and then we'll be able to put more tiling up and hopefully not have any issues like that again. We're certainly not going to put more carpet down, that's for sure. We're just going to use tile from now on. And then of course all of this lovely old wood paneling behind me here, that has to get all removed and replaced. So yeah, got a lot of work ahead of me. But anyway, like I said in the last video yesterday, we are going to be talking about, well, remakes of horror movies and the classic horror movies that they were based on. And we're going to start with one of my personal favorite horror movies of all time. Of course, I am talking about George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Now, this movie, the original black and white film, is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I have a ton of different versions of this film on DVD. Still have not gotten one on Blu-ray, just haven't been able to find one out and about, and I don't buy things online, so it's going to be a while probably before I find one of those. I'd have to really luck out. But the original film is incredible. I mean, it completely redefined the zombie genre. Of course, there were plenty of zombie movies long before George Romero came around and made Night of the Living Dead. But whenever anybody talks about zombies, Romero zombies are immediately what pops into somebody's mind. And of course, Romero zombies, unlike the zombies that were in previous films, are the kind that rise from the dead to devour the flesh and or brains of the living and can only be killed with a headshot or, destroying, damaging the brain enough to where they'll go down. You'll see this type of zombie or, some facsimile thereof, whether they can actually be killed or not, in just about every major zombie film that you're going to see nowadays. Night of the Living Dead, any other version of Night of the Living Dead that you can find is all going to have this, and there have been a lot of remakes of this film, and an interesting one called Mimesis Night of the Living Dead, which was not actually a remake, but it was an attempt to, well, you know what? That's a movie that I'll talk about another time because it's actually a really interesting, concept. So anyway, yeah, any zombie movie just about that you see that has come out since Night of the Living Dead is going to incorporate this type of zombie. Like I said, all of the other remakes, all of the sequels, the whole series is Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, which is, by far my personal favorite in the series. And then, of course, Land of the Dead. There are some other ones that came out after that that are part of, a different, series that Romero was working on before he passed. There were 3 of those. I'm not going to talk about any of those, but the same concept applies. The same type of zombies, the flesh-eating, shoot 'em in the head kind of zombies. There's also movies like the old Italian classics, Zombie and Zombie 2, and Zombie. I think there were six of them or so, and let's see what else. Oh, oh yeah, Burial Ground, which is just a totally messed up movie. That's something I'm going to have to talk about another time. That is another bizarre, off the wall zombie classic. But so anyway, previous to this movie, and also after that, but they're not really as well known. There were just kind of this typical zombie movie was more like a traditional like voodoo Haitian kind of zombie, where somebody died and then was brought back as a mindless slave, a servant. That's the traditional zombie, as opposed to the Romero zombie. And then there were things like the undead Templar Knights that showed up in several different films throughout the years. Um, they're a classic. I'm sure if you're a movie file, you have seen at least one of the old classic Templar Knight zombie films. They're out there, and they're some of the most ridiculous, wacky, great things that I've ever seen. Just zombies with swords hacking people away with swords. It's great, and they're of course completely unkillable. But so for this movie, Night of the Living Dead, um, the original black and white version, one of the versions that I have on DVD, and perhaps my favorite version, is one that was colorized. You can watch both the black and white version or the colorized version on the DVD, and the colorized version, if you're watching that, actually has a great commentary track by one of the guys from Mystery Science Theater 3000, and it's hilarious. It's beautiful. Um, but I generally prefer, unless I just want to laugh at that track, I usually just watch the old black and white version, because to me that's just the way that this film should be seen, and that's the way that I first saw it when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. I couldn't have been much older than my daughter is, and it happened to be on one night, and my mother decided to start watching it and terrorizing me with it all night, and I was absolutely horrified. I mean, I saw the first scene, and it just got embedded in my mind, and I had nightmares for months, night terrors even. I mean, it was seriously frightening to me as a child, and I feel like all of the things that were terribly frightening to me as a child are now suddenly my favorite things. Um, so I don't know, kind of crazy, but anyway. So in this film, it starts off, and brother and sister duo, Barbara and Johnny, are headed out to, I want to say it's their father's grave site, way out away from their home. Their mother is just too old to be able to make the trip anymore, and every year on either his birthday or the anniversary of his death, whatever the case may be, they go out and they bring flowers to his grave just to kind of memorialize him for their mother, who is unable to make the trip. Um, and of course, uh, they get out there, and Johnny starts talking about how Barbara used to be terrified of the cemetery. And I used to have that same fear, actually, too. I can't remember what the word for fear of cemeteries is, what the phobia word is. And if anybody can remember it, go ahead and comment it down below. So anyway, of course, I don't have that fear now. It doesn't really bother me. In fact, I like to go out and explore cemeteries and just see old gravestones and just kind of imagine what all of these people were like, and just that sort of thing. But and especially since a lot of times nowadays, the really old grave sites and everything, there's probably nobody even around to remember them and memorialize them or anything. So it's nice for somebody to just go out there and at least try to think about what this person would have been like. I feel like that's just respecting the dead somehow. But Johnny starts talking about Barbara's fear of cemeteries and starts creeping her out, and that's where you get the whole, popular line from the film, "They're coming to get you, Barbara," and he starts like, chasing her around the cemetery, just joking around. "They're coming for you. Look, there's one of them now." And of course, he points to this guy who's just sort of like, walking in the background. Um, can't remember the guy's first name, but the last name is Hines, and he played the first zombie in the film. And of course, Barbara's just like, "Oh, you need to, stop this right now, Johnny. Oh, but, this is bad. You need to go apologize to that guy." And the guy walks up to them, and she starts attempting to say that she's sorry when the guy grabs her, and Johnny, pushes her away, and the guy just slams him down onto, oh, Bill Heinzman. That's his name. Bill Heinzman played the very first Romero zombie. And he's got that classic look when he's, sitting there after he knocks Johnny down, and he just kind of like grabs the side of a tombstone and is looking up at Barbara and gonna chase her just as the lightning strikes and the storm begins. It's just, the typical creepy cliche, haunted house night in a movie. So, at this point, Barbara, runs away into the car, thinking that she'll be able to just drive it and get away. But of course, Johnny had the keys, and he just got knocked out because he slammed his head into a tombstone. Now, interesting thing about this is that it then shows Johnny later, and he doesn't appear bitten or anything like that. For all intents and purposes, it looks like what caused his death was this slam to the head, which kind of gets me thinking as I watch the film. If he slammed his head on this tombstone hard enough to kill him, that would have caused enough damage to his brain that he wouldn't have resurrected as a zombie. But be that as it may, he did. And I can't explain that. I guess that's just a weird little, thing that was added in there that just has no explanation, whatever. But it does always kind of ruin it a little bit for me because, the rules were not followed. It just bugs me. But anyway, so, she just runs off and finds a farmhouse. And at this point, from this point on, she's just completely worthless. She has gone completely insane, and she just, babbles, and she's useless for the rest of the film. So eventually, when she makes it to this farmhouse, in comes Ben, the only survivor of the film. And Ben is just an amazing character. He's the only one for quite a while who really has any major lines and really kind of describes, what is happening around this, rural area and everything, and how, the dead are coming back. And he talks about how he was at a diner and he saw, a bunch of, these zombies just like turn over a car and start eating people inside and everything. And he just ran for his life, and he got into his truck and took off. And so they've got the truck there, but it's running out low on gas. And so keep that in mind because that's important. Now, eventually, they find out that there were already some people in this house after getting attacked by some more zombies and things. And, they start having this argument, well, the group that was already there insists that the cellar, where they've been hiding the whole movie, is the safest place. It's a man, a woman, their young daughter who was bitten by a zombie who's like, just laying down there ill. And then another guy and his girlfriend who are down there. Names, I don't remember offhand, but I'm actually just doing this off of memory because I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I've seen it enough to really, remember everything that's going on. So they argue, oh no, the cellar is by far the safest place, and Ben and uh, Barbara are up there insisting, no, it's safest up here because down there's only one way out, and that's through this door into the house. If the zombies get in here and they start heading down there, we're just, we might as well just give up and kill ourselves. So can't do that. So we got to stay up here where we're surrounded by doors and windows. We can just barricade all of them. We can, remain up here. And that way, if they end up getting in one entrance and we can't fight them off, we can escape through another. That's the theory, anyway. And of course, this is like one of the big contentious plot lines in the entire film. What is the safest place? Well, eventually, the guy and his girlfriend who were down there decide to head out to fuel up the truck. And, well, needless to say, they don't make it. They're attacked. Fuel just ends up going everywhere. The truck explodes in a ball of flame. And, well, the zombies start eating them in what is one of the most, vicious scenes of, just devouring raw flesh meat ever. And even in black and white, it's just terrifying and sickening. It's amazing. So anyway, after all that's said and done, eventually, naturally, all of the zombies start coming in. This is the point where we see Johnny, who is a zombie, and he just kind of like grabs Barbara and pulls her out. And it gets to the point where the only person left alive is Ben, because he goes downstairs where it's discovered that the little girl who was bitten, ends up turning into a zombie when the bite kills her, and it has bitten her mother, who has also turned into a zombie. Um, Not only did she bite her, but for whatever reason, she grabbed a trowel and just started like stabbing her with it. You see it in shadows on the wall and blood just flying up onto the wall. It was very well done. But that brings another point of contention. It seems like they don't really think oh, the zombies can use tools until the fourth installment of the series. Yet there was a zombie who used tools in the first one. But ignoring that, Ben goes down, takes care of them, barricades himself in the cellar. It turns out the cellar really was kind of the safest place because, he survives the night and doesn't get bit. He lives. The following day, the sheriff and all of his men are, going around rounding up all the zombies and shooting them in the heads and just getting rid of them. And they look over to the house, and there's Ben, holding his rifle and just kind of looking out of the window, and they just mistake him for another zombie and shoot him in the head. And then it's just this montage of still images during the end scene where, they're just hooking his body and taking it over to a fire, and like a big pile full of zombie bodies, and just setting fire to the pile and burning them all and everything like that. And it's kind of implied at the end of the film that everything's going to be okay. All of you know the sheriff and all of his deputies and all of his men just get rid of the zombie menace. But this isn't something that's just affecting this area, as it turns out, because there are several sequels in which eventually pretty much the entire world, or at least the whole of the United States, as far as we know, gets overrun by zombies. Um, but all of them do, as far as I'm aware, take place in or very near the United States, and yeah, so we never really see what's happening elsewhere. But anyway, so yeah, this film just brings up all sorts of interesting little questions and concerns. And if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to write them down in the comments. But you know, what makes a zombie a zombie? A lot of people believe that the Romero zombie is the true, zombie, and that any movie that doesn't have Romero style zombies is not a zombie movie. And other people like me just believe, okay, a zombie is a mindless automaton doing one thing, doesn't even really have necessarily a goal in mind. So films like 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, all of the old films like White Zombie and things like that, those are all zombie movies as far as I'm concerned. But again, that's something that you can, write down in the comments there. Let me know what you think about that. And that's all I've got for you for today. Tomorrow I'm going to get into the remake from 1990, I believe it is. That was a nice color version and a good attempt at a remake. And then we'll talk a little bit more about, zombie myths and lore and things like that. And then we'll get on to another film the following day. But that's all I got for you today. Thanks for hanging out. Take it easy.